In the valley near his home there was a deep hole, and that is where these people with magic powers lived. I sometimes go there, he used to say. We used to get together, he told me. They have a beautiful place to live. They used to have dances with music. Sometimes I used to pass there at night, and they were dancing, and I could hear beautiful music. Sometimes I would just pass by, and other times I would join them, the old man used to say. And then the next story. The little person of Sugar Mountain. My father told me this story. He said that he and his grandmother lived together over there at Sugar Mountain, over there across Caney Creek. About 2 miles from where I live on the road is called Sugar Mountain. At one time my grandmother said my father had told her when water was scarce, about halfway up Sugar Mountain was a spot that was always damp, as if there was a spring there. She said he used to say, my grandmother dug out the place. It was very soft digging, said my father, who was a boy at that time. I was playing around nearby while my grandmother was digging, hoping there would be some water there, he said. So after a while, when she had dug as far as her arm could reach, water gushed out, and it overflowed. And when she put her hand in again to scoop out the soil, I heard some whooping, my father said. The whoop was very loud. There was a boy named Ugalog, the son of Kodesk, who lived there. We used to whoop to each other often in the past, said my father. Ugalog is whooping at you. Whoop back at him, my grandmother said to me, he said. But when I at last decided where the whooping was coming from, I decided it was from the hole where the water was coming from, my father used to say. And I told my grandmother that it was not Ugalog who was whooping, but it is down where you are sticking your hand in. That's where the whooping is coming from, I told her, said my late father. When my grandmother listened, she decided it was coming from the hole, she said. Yes, it is. It's a little person who is whooping, she said. Let's leave. So we ran away, my late father said. Finally we arrived home, he said. And that's the way it was in those days. Those events were related to me by these two persons, Uwedasad and his father, and I thought I would give you these short accounts. People say that Uwedasad had magic powers. They used to say that he could predict the future very quickly. That's all I know. That is all. Sikwanit. And now here again, this whooping. I've heard that people would whoop to their neighbor and let them know they're home, but out in the woods, sometimes my friends and I will go looking for Sasquatch, and you don't really look for Sasquatch. That's just something you say. Usually you just you make a fire, sit down, and tell stories, and the Sasquatch finds us. And they'll push over a tree and break some branches, and then you know they're there. But you'll hear them whoop sometimes. And I took my kids camping last Labor Day weekend, and there was a lot of fires in the mountains last summer. So I think the Sasquatch and other whatever else it was were down low in kind of the farming communities, and we were out near Packwood, Randall, along the Cowlitz River here in Washington, and I heard this whoopings, like things whooping to each other, just a whoop like that, and I'd hear one across the river, and then one behind us. I'd hear one upriver, one downriver, and so forth. And I told my kids, "Hey, listen, do you hear that? Does that sound like any animal you ever heard of?" And they agreed. It sounded like the whooping you hear that Sasquatch do. And then now I'm reading little people doing it. So I started whooping back, and then they'd answer me, and my son, he wanted me to stop. It was scaring him. So I stopped for a while. Maybe a half hour went by, and then finally my son says, do it again, do it again. He started saying that it was safe and that it was kind of fun. And that was a fun camping trip. So here's the next story. An encounter with the little people. We made plans to go fishing, and when we started, we went down this road. We went some distance where there was a deep pool, and that's where we fished. One of the young boys that went with us kept looking back in the direction from which we had come. I was sitting here, indicating in the middle. The boy was sitting here, indicating to one side, and the other person here, indicating to the other side. I didn't see anything, but the boy kept looking back. After the boy had turned around several times, I turned around and looked, and I saw 3 people just this high, indicating about 3 feet, standing there. 2 were women, for they had on dresses. 1 was a man, for he had on a pair of pants. The man had his hand on a tree. I'm sure the tree is still there. I kept turning to watch them. Then the second time I looked, they had started walking in that direction into the woods. The boy stopped turning around then, and when he got home, I asked him why he had been looking back so much. He said, there was somebody behind us talking, and when I turned, I didn't see anybody. Then I would hear them talking again. I told him that there were 3 persons looking at us from behind us. The boy didn't say anything. He didn't say whether he saw anything or not. He was silent. That is all. Gano. And so that's just another experience of, you hear this chatter in the woods. And I'm not the only one. My friends have heard the same thing. And usually we've thought it was Sasquatch, but you never know. Deer love. A tale of the deer people bears a strong resemblance to both a Hichiti and a Koazati story in the book with an acronym SMTS. A weak resemblance to an Alabama narrative in the same collection, a Choctaw story in BCBL, another book, a Chitamacha example in DSSA, another book, and a Biloxi one in DSOB, and that's another book. But all these pale beside the richness of imagery, opulence, and detail, and psychological depth with which Sequanid imbues his account. Long ago there were 2 young men. They were brothers. They had never before taken any notice of young women. These 2 boys were handsome, and they used to like to go to the stomp dances. When they went to these dances and stayed all night, there were other people there that they didn't know. These people were strangers. Most of them were women. 2 of the women wore all black, shiny clothes. They wore matching gloves that were long and beautiful. These women were beautiful. As soon as the dance was over, these women would disappear, and when the dance started again, they would run in from another direction and join the dance. As the women did these things, the young men watched them. One of the young men said to his brother, I'm going to find out where these women come from. I'm going to ask one of them. All right, his brother answered. And if you can go with them, I'll just wait around here until you return. Good. It was just at dawn, when it becomes light, that the young man joined the dance and was dancing between the young women as they were stomp dancing. So the young man asked one of the women, Where do you come from? I see you come to the dance often. So the woman turned around and said, We live just right over there, not very far from here, on the other side of the creek. When are you going home? Asked the young man. We are leaving soon. We will soon get ready to go. One of the women questioned him and said, Are you going with us? Yes, I'll go with you, said the young man. If you will go ahead on the way we are going, you can be waiting for us at the creek. When we arrive, "We all wash our faces and then go across to the other side," said the young woman. The young women liked him very much. These beautiful women were human beings. He waited for them at the creek, and sure enough, as it was getting light, they arrived. They went down the hill to the creek and washed their faces. So did the young man. After they washed their faces, they walked in single file in a very narrow, smooth path. It was very rocky all around them. It looked as if there were a mountain made of stone. They walked along a bluff a long way, and then after a while, one of the young women said, "Here it is." So they stopped, and it was rocky there. When they stopped there, one of the young women opened a stone door, and when they had entered, she closed the door. After they entered, he noticed that everything was just the same as it was on the outside. He noticed that there were many people there, all kinds. They were having some kind of meeting. They were going to have a feast. They were cooking all sorts of wild meat. They had beautiful tables. The young man stood and gazed at these activities. He saw sitting in a corner an old man with a long white beard. The young man moved near the old man. "You did an amazing thing in that you were able to follow the young women," said the old man to the young man. "I have told everyone that they did very well for themselves. They found themselves a young man," said the old man. "Yes, I came with them," said the young man. "We will have good things to eat after a while, but we are going to have a ball game first," said the old man. So they had this game with the ball sticks. After the ball game, a very long table loaded with food was ready, and cooking was still going on. Some of these people that were cooking he had never seen before, and some of the dead were there cooking. They were cooking in a huge pot. After eating, the young man went back and resumed talking to the old man. The old man said to the young man, "Tomorrow there is going to be a race, and if you'd like to do so, you can enter the race. These two young women that you brought in here, they both can be yours if you win," said the old man. "There will be 7 places to run to, and if you arrive at the 7th place, you will have won, and I will give you the young women," said the old man. "All right," said the young man. "I didn't bring my racing clothes. I suppose I need to wear those," said the young man. "Yes," said the old man. "I have beautiful racing clothes that I wear when I race, and I will let you wear them," said the old man. So the next morning they made ready. The young man put on the racing clothes in a room where he was allowed to change his clothes. When he put on these clothes, he dressed from head to toe in beautifully shiny clothes, and his hands were covered with beautiful gloves. As he was looking at his hands and feet, he noticed that they had become like the feet of a deer. He was amazed at how beautiful he appeared. When it was nearly time for the race, the old man said to the young man, "Now you are just about ready to race." The old man snapped his whip to signify that it was time to race. And as he did that, the 2 young women appeared at the sides of the young man, and they ran with him down the wide road. The 3 disappeared as they ran upon the smooth road. The young man had on a hat that had a lot of horns on it, and it disappeared from view. After they had run a while, they saw another person dressed just as he was dressed, a little smaller in size, running down the road, coming toward them. They met face to face in the middle of the road. When they met face to face, they butted each other, and the smaller man reeled back in the road, but he arose, and they butted again, and they butted each other 7 times. On the 7th butt, the smaller one was vanquished. The young man and the young woman continued running down the road. Down the road they met another one. This time he had huge antlers. They butted 7 times. And on the 7th time the young man won.